Hey everyone, Gerard Scarpese here, craft hairdresser and co-founder of the Hairbrain community. We're back in New York City for a very special HB Live. We're with our good friend Kristen Serafino, and she is a celebrity hairdresser, which we'll talk about. Super exciting. I mean, serious names like Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds. We'll get into that. She's kind of got this superhero thing going on, which I think is awesome. Today she's going to be sharing her love for scissor-over-comb, which is sort of one of the most important techniques for short hair in general, whether it be men or women. And she's got some great tips and tricks for you guys to pick up here. So we're going to dial in. Let's learn about this scissor-over-comb technique, and then we'll get into some interesting and fun backstory. So Kristen, tell us a little bit about how you're starting out.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. So we're going to go ahead and perform a scissor-over-comb on Rostum. You know, a couple of things that I want to share when I talk about scissor-over-comb is technique and how important shear control is when scissor-over-comb. If you notice, my shear stays completely steady on the bottom of that comb, as well as my comb is scooping. So for those of you that are barbers, I want you to think of this as your guard and this as your clipper. It's a really simple technique to transition over, but what I love about scissor-over-comb technique is that it's very personalized. It does take a little bit longer, but the personalization of it actually asks for more money in the salon. So I think that it's a wonderful technique. I think it takes a little time to perfect, but once you get it, it's really hard for me not to use my shears. So first thing I do is I'm starting at the nape. As you can see, Rostum already has a harder edge line, but I like to do more of a natural line. So what I'll technically do is come in with a thinner shear, and when I say thinner, it's about, I don't know, how many inches would you think that is?
Oh, it's a millimeter, yeah.
A millimeter.
Yeah, it's like a barbering comb.
A barbering comb. I'll start at the bottom and work my way up just to create the baseline. And as you can see, I'm already losing that hard line.
So it's like having a thinner guard.
Exactly.
For those who are used to clipper fading.
Exactly. Once again, barbers, this is your guard, this is your clipper. Just think of it as the same techniques.
So quick question, just kind of clarifying question. So do you ever use clippers for this work, or do you say I choose clippers when I want it to look this way, I choose scissors when I want it to look that way?
So I do use clippers. What I use it for is when I just see skin all the way, like a true...
A real fade.
Real fade, a proper fade. But I mean, in a lot of my clientele, I'm actually moving away from the fade. Mm-hmm. I'm into more growth. I'm a huge proponent of change. And I think that the fade is fantastic, but I also think the growing out stage is just as important. And what I mean by that is that I like to say to clients, would you wear the same shirt every single day for an entire year? And they all look at me and they're like, of course not. So then I tend to say to them, well, why are you wearing your hair the same? So I like to create change with haircuts.
That's a
change
great,
with style.
you know, language is so important when you're working with clients. And as we mentioned earlier, again, I know a lot of you guys are just joining us. I want to give some shout outs. Our good friend Eileen is watching from Long Island. I saw Rick Bennett was here. Monica's watching from Mexico. Guys, let us know where you're watching from. We always like to try to figure out who's furthest away, where you guys are at. We also are sharing, if you're just joining us, an incredible technique, scissor-over-comb, coming from a master men's groomer who also does women's hair.
Yes.
But we'll talk about that. She just ended up in this men's world of doing celebrity male clientele. And we were talking earlier about how you're kind of in this like superhero world right now. A lot of your celebrities are superheroes. Let's talk about that a little bit. And guys, I have a fun game for you to play at home. Write in the name of a male celebrity, and we'll see if Kristen's ever done their hair. So think of a male celebrity, and we'll see if she's done their hair, because she's done Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, tons of others, and these are, you know, her regular clientele. So how did you get into that? How did you get into the superhero thing?
You know, it's interesting. I started at Tony and Guy, stalwart in sort of education in men's and women's hair cutting. And what I learned from them was the technique of scissor control, shear control. And it sort of has carried me over into the world of women's as well as men. And as I sort of involved myself into editorial work, which again started from Tony and Guy with their photographic awards, what I realized is I love photo shoots. And when I started looking at magazines, I saw that who was on the magazine covers were celebrities. And so I started really getting...
Yeah, kind of moved from models into celebrities.
From models into celebrities. And with that, I said, well, how am I going to get myself celebrities? So I just started photo shooting, testing, building a portfolio, and then I actually cold called. I have an agent now, But at that time, I didn't. So I started cold
So
calling.
wait, you you just
Publicists.
wanted to do celebrities,
Yeah.
and you started cold calling their publicists.
I started cold
and just
calling.
said, I want to do their hair.
And I got so
Wow.
many no's. And they
That's
said,
really amazing. I have never heard that version
Yep.
before.
And I said, they said, who do you work with? And I said, well, nobody. And they said to me, well, call me when you do. And then actually two publicists, Jeffrey Chasson and Leslie Sloan, who to this day I still work with, gave me my break. And they basically said, okay, we'll give you a shot. And that's pretty much how I started in the celebrity world. And then once you do one, you get another. And at that time, I was doing much more female work. And Camila Alves, who is now Camila McConaughey, was a client I was shooting with. And Pamela De Palma, who again is a publicist, was working with Camila. And I went out to California to do a shoot with Camila. And Matthew walked in and said, will you cut my hair? And changed the direction and course of my career. Because at that time, he was about to do press for Lincoln Lawyer. And I spent a good 7 years traveling the world with McConaughey. And that's how I kind of...
That must have been a wild time. He seems like a really interesting,
He's
unique
fantastic.
fella.
I gotta tell you, he is
Yeah.
truly... So just to sort of go back onto what I'm doing.
Totally.
Scissor-over-comb technique, I started at the nape. I started out with a thinner a thinner comb, just to sort of get more of a fade. Then walked over to a thicker comb, working my way up through the haircut. Came in through the side. Notice two things I want to point out when talking about men's haircut. There's a bone right here. A lot of times, if you don't watch how you cut this, you'll get a hole. Another area to remember on gentlemen is this area. And what I mean by that is that I almost keep this as an island, if you can look here. Because this hair, for whatever reason, tends to look thicker. It's on the hairline, and it shows more. So what I'll do is I'll actually come into this separately and really focus on this area, comb it through, and see how it blends in. So a lot of times hairdressers will come through, cut this, and forget about this section. So you want to make sure that you focus here and be careful of the bone back here. Two things. As I continue through scissor-over-comb, pointing out here, scissor-over-comb for your barbers. This is your guard, this is your clipper. So my guard and my shear. I come in, this is my scooping technique as you do with barber, with your comb. I'm doing with my comb as well. And then I continue up through the haircut. Notice how my blade is staying on the line of my comb. So with that being said, two techniques I want to teach you, and this was something that it took me a while to learn. A lot of times I find hairdressers will sort of chomp at hair, not keeping control of their thumb.
Have you ever heard that called quacking?
Is that what? No, I never
like
have.
a duck? They call it
Okay, it's
quacking.
quacking.
When both
So
blades move like that.
For those that quack, what you're going to do is create lines in your haircut when you scissor-over-comb. In order to avoid that, you want to have control of your shear. So watch again my blade on the bottom of the comb. It never comes off it because it's just my thumb that's moving. Now, how do you learn that technique? Well, it takes years of practice. But to start, I'll show you what I did when I was learning hair. I would take my finger, sit on a couch, and just move my thumb. It's muscle memory. I would just do this for hours. Then, eventually, I would take a comb, hold the bottom, watch your finger not to cut it, and I would just do this. And that was what I do when on my off time. I mean, I could do anything with it and just get muscle memory. Then what I would do is I start taking this against a head, and notice how the bottom of my shear never, ever, ever leaves the bottom of the comb. And how you never see, I've cut from here all the way to the front, and there are no lines in this haircut. Now people will say, well, you can do that with a thinning shear. I'll go back with a thinning shear, not to thin hair. I'll go back with the thinning shear to soften the ends. So as his hair grows, it grows in flat and more naturally versus lines in the hair. So let's just roast him around.
It's all about technique, some really great tips there.
Thank you.
And yeah, we can watch the whole process now on this side. And there are a few people are wondering about the speed of it. I think obviously lots of times people say, well, the clipper's just faster. And maybe it is, but there's some differences in the finish and also probably the value.
Well, again, going back to, it's a really great point and a great question as far as time. If no one was watching and we weren't videoing this, I could easily knock this out in probably 15 minutes, 20 at the most.
You can do scissor-over-comb quickly.
Quickly.
Absolutely.
Once you get the technique down and your shears are steady and you have control, then it's the same thing. I find when you do clipper, you put the line, then you clip up, then you fade to the next, and you're always adjusting your shears.
Yeah, I've seen people take a really long time with clippers.
Exactly.
I've seen a lot of 3-hour fades. Beautiful end result, but
right. So
to me, it's not about speed, it's about quality.
I agree with you. So I think it's quality as well as, it's very personalized when I'm in with my shears. And again, I can control on my clipper. If I go through here, it's all going to be the same length all the way through.
Yeah.
Whereas I can control the bone, I can control this area. So I have
with
much more
Rostam's
control.
hair, because he's got thick and thin, he's got
Ooh.
strong growth patterns.
Yes, he
So you
does.
can kind of change on a dime with the comb. You're like, you just change
Yep.
the direction. So yeah, I think that's a great one. You ready to play our little game here and
I
see?
love it.
Okay, so if you guys are just
Games.
watching, Kristen has quite the celebrity clientele, the male celebrities. We'll just throw out a couple of the big names she mentioned: Matthew McConaughey, Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds. So I asked a little earlier if we could get a little list of male celebrities, and we'll see if Kristen's ever done their hair. We've got some good ones here.
Okay.
So first up, this is actually a great one. Sam Elliott.
No, I haven't. I have not.
I bet you'd
Sam
love to,
Elliott.
though. He's got a
Yes,
great
but
head of
actually,
hair.
one of it's very
His
interesting.
mustaches, you know.
Yeah, he's so handsome.
Yeah.
I haven't.
Okay, well, we'll have to talk to his
But so
publicist.
put that out there, please.
Let's call his publicist.
It is public. Let's y'all cold call
Yeah.
publicist.
How about Chris Evans?
You know, I was up for Chris Evans,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, I was with another client for the Oscars. So I was close to working with Chris Evans, but scheduling didn't work. Our timing for Oscars didn't work with the client I was working with.
You know, we were talking a little bit earlier, and one of the things I found really cool was a lot of times for films, when some of these guys are in films, she'll work with the directors and the producers to kind of come up with a look for them for that film. And then the on-set hairdressers kind of take over after that. But it's pretty cool. So you get to go in and hear like who the character is and try
Yes.
to tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll get back to Scissor-over-comb.
Yes. Okay. So as far as like working with, you know, I'm very fortunate, and just like anything with clients that you have in the salon, it's all about trust, right? And I think I mentioned earlier that it's not necessarily about doing the same thing every time. You know, what's extremely important to me is when a client sits in my chair, no matter how many years that they've been with me, I have a consultation every time. I never just send someone back to a shampoo bowl. And the reason being is that's how I'm going to get your client, because people get tired of looking the same. People get tired of like, oh, this doesn't work for me, or oh, I'm not sure. Whereas I'm always about creating change and versatility. Now, getting back to the question of how does it work with my clients that I do for movies? Well, because I control the looks that they're having in their haircuts, for the films, whether it's a character, whether it's an everyday, what I'll do is I'll meet with that person, we'll look at the character of the film, which again, change. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll do the haircut, I'll speak with a director, a producer, whoever it is on the set, and I'll set the look and then send them off to shoot the film for months. I'm very respectful of the union people, because I am not in the union, but I'll do it before the movie. And I'm very respectful of those people who are brilliant on set that are spending months on it. So I think it's important that we all work together to create the look and style that they'll be able to maintain throughout the film.
I want to jump in and give a couple shout outs to some of our community that's watching. My good friend Christine Zielinski, who's been featured here before.
Hi, Christine.
Yep. Do you know Christine? Have you ever met her?
I know of her.
Yeah, Salon, New Jersey. We've got Jamie Mavrakas is watching. Says she's learning a lot about how to get her son a better haircut
I
here.
love that.
Sometimes we have just regular consumers watching, and they usually really get a lot out of it.
Excellent.
Jenna Cook says thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Daryl Jeter, I wonder if any relationship to Derek.
Or Daryl Dixon.
Yeah, Daryl Jeter says very neat cut. So again, let us know where you're watching from, guys. I see that we've got Lynn Doherty here watching from Scotland. Let us know where you're watching from. We've had people watching sometimes from Africa, from as far away as Australia. So today we're in New York City. We're at our New York studio, Blonde & Co. We've got our special guest, Kristen Serafino, excuse me. And some other exciting news here. You're seeing that she's a great hair cutter and has a celebrity clientele. And she's about to open her first salon here in New York City in the next couple of months.
I'm so excited.
So when you feel comfortable and you get into your haircut, and then tell us about your new salon.
Okay, first really quickly, let me just go, because I switched gears here, so I want to make sure we focus on the haircut first, and then we'll get into the exciting news that I'm about to get to, and you just announced it for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I switched gears and I went to a thinning shear. Actually, Courtney, can you come over with me for a second? The reason why I'm going in with a thinning shear is that I'm not taking weight out. I don't want to create a weight in his hair, a loss of fullness through here. What I want to do is soften the edges, so as his hair grows in, it actually falls flatter to the head. So what I'm doing is, if you notice, it's the same technique, I'm just using the tips, and I'm just softening the tips of the hair. That's all I'm doing, so it lays nice and flat to the head. So don't think of thinning shears as always thinning hair, think of them as tools to create the perfect grow out within your haircut. So, okay, sorry. Now, what was the question? Oh, my salon.
Yeah, so we just learned not too long ago that Kristen's going to be opening her first salon here in New York City.
Yes.
And probably the best location in the city right now. It's called Hudson Yards. If you guys have heard of it, it's a whole new complex that's kind of become like the center of a lot of things
Yes.
in New York City. There's an incredible mall in there, and your salon's going to be located there. And let's hear a bit, because it's definitely something different and exciting. And I know you're looking for staff members, so we've got a lot of hairdressers watching, and I know for them, a lot of them have the dream of moving to New York and working in a fabulous salon. So let's hear it.
Thank you. I'm really, truly excited in my world and career. I think I mentioned to you, Jordan, I started this career at the age of 30. So I worked in corporate for 10 years, and then when I turned 30, I went to beauty school and became a hairdresser and sort of started.
So you've only been doing hair for 2 years?
That's all. Can you believe it? In fact, I just graduated beauty school.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So with that being said, I started a little bit later and took a path of education at Tony & Guy, and then I worked at Dop Salon with Joe Blackwell, who truly gave me the chance to explore my world of editorial as well as the celebrity, which is what I'm kind of my main focus is now. And with that being said, I never at that moment thought, oh, I'd have my own salon with my name on the door. And I was approached to have my space, my name hang on the door at this, like you said, this wonderful opportunity of Hudson Yards. I mean, it's incredible to think that I'm part of this largest construction site in the entire world right now, an entire country. So with that being said, I have my name on the door. It's a 2-person chair salon. We are specializing in haircuts and blow dries. It is, I'm really excited to have an incredible team come on board. I'm looking for seasoned hairstylists at the point. Because it's a smaller space, we aren't looking for someone just out of beauty school at the time, because we won't be having education. So really someone that has a little bit more experience behind the chair, someone that has great shear control, someone that is really motivated, because not only are we gonna kick butt in Hudson Yards, but we're also gonna grow an incredible clientele, a loyal clientele that is excited for growth, opportunity, and also, I mean, New York City is the greatest place in the world to work.
So if someone out there is listening and this sounds like a great opportunity to them, what's a good way for them to contact you or the manager? How should they find out about this opportunity?
Right now, just on my Instagram is great, at Serafino Says. Would be great, just hit me up on DM. I think that's a perfect way to start. You can email me at Kristen, Kristan, at KristenSerafinoSalon.com. It's a mouthful.
Yeah, well, you know what? We can put it in the comments. We'll write the information. So anyone that's maybe interested in the opportunity, maybe you're in New York or your dreams are to move to New York and work in a top-notch salon, we'll put it right here in the comments, and you can either DM Kristen or send her an email and learn more about the opportunity. If you're just joining us, we're getting a great lesson in Scissor-over-comb, a real classic technique. I'll be honest, when I've had to assess hairdressers as either an art director of a salon or an owner, I mean, lots of people can come in and do lots of great things. Usually when I want to really get an idea of how good of a hair cutter they are, I'll say, show me some Scissor-over-comb.
Right.
I really will.
It's so true.
You can't fake this.
No.
You can make lots of things look great, having some gimmicks and stuff and knowing how to use blowouts, but there's nothing you can fake here. So right from the minute you started cutting, I said, okay, well, she definitely, you had never worked before. I know you're a great reputation.
Thank you.
But in 5 minutes, I knew that you can cut hair really well.
Thank you so
much. So that's, for me, that's really a barometer. And something for you guys to consider. I know a lot of times people think, well, clippers are just faster, but maybe it's holding you back. I don't have anything against clippers. I think they're great. But maybe it's holding you back from developing a certain type of dexterity with your shear and your scissor that would make you a more well-rounded hair cutter. So something to think about there.
Yeah.
If you're great with clippers, you love clippers, try something else.
Yes.
And flip side of that, if you've never used clippers, because there's a lot of hairdressers that are anti-clippers. No, we're not anti-clippers.
No, not at all.
Be great at everything.
I do both.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do want to say one thing. What I agree with you completely, Gerard, is that this technique is control a shear. Now, how does this apply to other type of cutting techniques? And just to start off, I only do dry cutting. And the reason why I do that is that unless I'm creating a hard line on a bob where I need the hair to really be wet to start my guideline, I'll only do dry cutting because I can see the hair. So where the technique of Scissor-over-comb, control of your shear, comes in with point cutting, comes in with deep point cutting where you can raise hair on women's hair and cut straight into the hair, everything is about controlling the shear. It's incredibly important to creating texture in the hair without creating lines. When you're, what did you call it? Chomping? What did you call it?
Quacking like
When
a duck.
You're quacking like quack, quack, quack. When you're quacking like a duck, that's all you're doing is creating lines in your hair. And we never want to see lines in a haircut. It's super important. So I just want to give you a really quick, really important tip with men's haircuts. And a lot of times I see this when I'll get new clients in my chair, and I'm always fascinated by it. And I said earlier, consultation is everything. Not one client in 17 years has ever gone straight back to the shampoo bowl. They sit in my chair every time, because change is how you evolve people, how you evolve their look, how you evolve their style, and how you get them coming back. Because it's not about his haircut today, it's where we're going with the haircut. So keep that in mind when you're consulting with your clients. So another thing I want to share with you is that with men's haircut, a lot of times I find people will leave corners on the hair. So the haircut will sort of come out like this. So it'll go out like this. Now visually when you look in the mirror, our heads are round. So if you're leaving weight in through here, then what happens is a man's haircut looks really wide in the forehead visually. So you want to think about cutting off the corners to keep roundness in the hair. It's a little bit more modern. I like to call that other haircut sort of like the banker cut. It's the laser part sort of thing that goes like this. I try to stay away from that right now, in general across the board. So even if it's on a longer scissor over comb, I still try to knock out the corners with weight so it lays flatter to the head. So again, keep that in mind, the rounds of the hair. It's really important to making a man not look wide through hair, especially with recession. Think about men that have recession. If you have weight line in through the round of the head, the eye is going to go towards his recession. Keep that in mind, it's very important. One of the biggest things I learned from men is that recession is a big thing and it's a concern. Although they don't like to admit it, you need to talk about it. And how you talk about it is you don't talk about the recession, you talk about how you make the hair look fuller on top. How do you do it? You take away the corners. Now, to approach the haircut on the top, I scissor over comb starting at the nape, went through the sides, took my thinning shears, softened out the edges. Now I'm going to come back out and point cut. Rostam has curly hair. People get intimidated by curly hair. I purposely picked a model, besides he's so handsome, I picked a model that had curly hair to show you how to address it. What I'm going to do, again, I cut dry because I can see what's happening. So I'm going to go in and just, I don't start with the center section. I literally start with the back, elevate everything straight up, and then what I'll do is sort of point cut. Now, really quick tip. When your scissors are at an angle and you cut hair, you're taking length. When your scissors are straight down, you're taking weight. It's easier to show on longer hair, but again, when you're cutting hair, when the scissors are at an angle, almost like little V's, I'm taking off weight. Well, his hair's too short right now, but when I want length taking out, what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll go straight into the hair. Can you see the difference? So weight's coming out. The reason why I wouldn't thinning shear any hair is that I want control and see where the weight is. So you see how there's a corner here. I'll go in, I don't want to lose it, but I'll go in straight and I'll take out some of the weight and comb it down. Another technique that I'll do with hair cutting with curly hair is I'll take it, I'll twist it, and just sort of, I don't even know what you call this technique. I know
Twisting.
Everyone knows it,
People
twisting,
usually call it twisting.
and then take out
And
the
back
weight.
cutting.
Back cutting,
Yeah.
yes. I could either obviously channel through, but again, I want to keep some of his weight. When you go too thin on curly hair, what happens? You get stringy ends. So we want to make sure we control that. So again, I'm just going to go ahead through. Let me start over again. I was giving you a bunch of tips throughout. So,
Those are all great tips and super important. As you get yourself set up, I want to share a great question that I think you can shed a lot of light on. Kelly Linfit is watching from Calgary, Canada.
Hi, Kelly.
And she's thrilled to hear that you're a latecomer because she also was as well. And she's also taken quite a lot of time off to raise her children, and she wants to get back into the salon. Do you have any tips as someone who's maybe not 16 years old and getting into the industry at a very, very young age? Like, what are some of your tips that can help her be successful in the salon or in her industry?
First and foremost, I applaud you on getting back into it. There's nothing I think more important than family, but now that I'm assuming your kids are raised or you're sort of taking a different approach on life and starting back in the salon again, just always remember, age is just a number. That's all it is. So with that being said, I think the approach is you have wisdom over ones that are younger. So wisdom is everything with age, and I think you're actually better off, to be honest with you, from someone that started this at 30 years of age. My tip would be, thank you. So my tip would be to help you get back into your feet again. Two things. One, remember, consultation is everything. That's the most important key to my success. It keeps my clients coming back. So don't worry about, oh, how am I going to get clients? Take care of the ones you have. That's the most important thing, because the person in your chair now is the one that's going to go out your door, walk down the street, and someone's going to go, hey, where'd you get your haircut? I love your hair. And they're going to send them to you. So that's a great thing to remember when starting out and getting back into it. The other thing is etiquette behind the chair. Everything that you do within your mirror stays within your mirror. It's between you and your client. And it's very important that you keep that conversation going. You remember things that you learned about your client, because it really is, if you think of it, and I know, Gerard, you've heard this, we're therapists along with being a hairstylist. So listen to what your clients are telling you. Listen to what they say about their life. Listen to what they tell you about their hair. Don't just say, let's do this. Listen to them. If he says to me, I want to grow my hair longer, well, I'm not going to cut him short. But what I am going to do is say to him, hey, listen, while we're growing this curl, let's think about this side keeping short until the curl forms a full curl and then starts growing into the sides. So continue to educate your clients. Did that answer the question? Or did I go off on a tangent?
No, I think it's great practical advice, because even in this world of social media marketing, I still know most clients come to you from a client in your chair.
Yes.
The referral from person to person. Social media is definitely something that can help build your brand, but end of the day, when Rostam walks out and his brother says, oh, your haircut looks good, where'd you get it? That's how you keep your chair full, and all those tips. Something that made me think of when you mentioned therapists, what I've been hearing more and more lately that I kind of love is that we're actually energy workers.
Oh, I love that.
Because there's not many professions where within a minute someone puts their hands on your head.
Yes.
Any place else you'd go would be a little weird. I mean, even if a doctor walked in and just put their hands on your head, you'd be like, wait, like this.
Yeah.
But us, we come right over and we touch people's heads, and there's like an energy transfer there. And I think it's a really interesting thing to consider. So maybe we're even going to that next level.
But I also, and I think exactly what you're saying, when you think about it, someone that's looking in a mirror for an hour, because most people spend anywhere from 35 to an hour, 30 minutes to an hour in your chair. So they're staring at themselves. So every insecurity comes out within them, because most people I know don't sit in front of a mirror for an hour.
Yeah.
So it's our jobs to see what's beautiful about them and what looks good on them, and how to accentuate with their haircuts. It's not necessarily being like, oh my God, you're right, your nose, girl, is horrible.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
No, it's not the lighting, it's you.
It's you. And yes, you have gained 15 pounds.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. What we want
And
to do
are
is,
you pregnant?
Yeah.
All the things you should never say.
Never say. But what you do want to say is, wow, a beautiful jawline. You have gorgeous eyes. Let's make your hair accentuate those features on your face. Let's work with those features versus the things that you don't like. So that's really what's kept me going and keeps my clients. I mean, I haven't been in a salon in a long time permanently, with the exception of my new salon that's opening up in the fall. But yet I have clients that have stayed with me for 17 years. And I mean, I travel the world with my clientele, my celebrity clientele, and they still stay with me. Why? Yes, I believe I'm a good hair cutter, but it's more because of the...
There are a lot of good haircutters out there.
There's a lot of good hair cutters. But why do they come back to me? I believe it's because of the experience they have behind my chair. I believe it's the consultation I give them. It's not about the haircut today. It's about where we're going with your hair. And so it's inevitable they're going to come back.
Absolutely.
Because, well, if we're talking about the next 3 haircuts, if you go someplace else, you're off the program. So.
Absolutely.
And
if you're just joining us, and I know so many of you are just kind of popping in and saying hello, I want to say thank you for joining us. I'm Gerard Scarpese, co-founder of the Hairbrain Community, bringing you our 420th, what's the number, Courtney?
Somewhere around there.
420th HB Live, and this is something we started doing several years ago so that you could meet great hairdressers, learn from them no matter where you are in the world, and also maybe learn about opportunities like the one that Kristen is talking about here. Opening a new salon in New York in the next few months and weeks in Hudson Yards, which is, if you know anything about what's happening in New York, it's one of the hottest locations for business, retail. It's a whole kind of community that was developed. I think there's even some people, housing, is there housing?
Oh, there's residential.
Yeah,
yes.
residential.
Residential.
So, again, if you're a New York hairdresser already, or if you're from out of state and you have the thoughts of moving to New York, this could be a great opportunity for you. Here in the comments, we'll write how you can get in touch with Kristen, but probably one of the easiest ways to follow her on Instagram, and it's Serafino Says.
That's it, Serafino
Just like
Says.
one word, Serafino.
Says, reach out to me and come work with me.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
All right, so let's get back into this haircut here again. A really challenging texture that you're making, look beautiful.
Thank you, Gerard.
And, I see that you've moved back into Scissor-over-comb. You've already cut the top. So what's going through your mind right now?
So right now, I pretty much completely you the haircut right now, and I'm just detailing and personalizing. And I also wanted to make sure for those of you just joining can see some of the techniques. I'm gonna do a very quick recap on this haircut and also quick tips on how I scissor over comb. We started at the nape on Rostam, work scissor over comb. For you barbers, just think, this is your guard, these are your clippers. So I'm gonna turn you just a little bit, thank you. I started the nape, again, guard, clippers. So I'm scooping as you do with clippers, and my scissor over combs are the actual clippers. Think of that as one. It never comes off. Notice the bottom of my shear never comes off the bottom of that comb. The importance of that is that you will never have lines in your hair. This is all shear work, and I'll tell you, are there lines in this haircut?
No, it's
Exactly.
flawless. Yeah.
Oh,
Have
well,
you seen that there's an actual comb that has a little ledge on the bottom where you can? It's made by our friends at Denman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Oh,
they
that's
made a
really
comb
cool.
for scissor over comb a few years ago. I never really saw it take off, but I think for training, and I think that was the
for
purpose.
training.
It's got this little ledge. I could probably get you one that maybe you could share with people. Cause
I would definitely
back to
love
what
to.
you were saying, you were showing how you used your finger.
Yes.
It's got like a little ledge, so the scissor locks right in, and it's pretty cool.
And
Yeah.
going back to exactly what I said, how I learned scissor over comb, Ray Simmons, who was at Dop Dop at the time, is a brilliant barber. I think he's at Mizu Salon right now, and he taught me this technique of scissor over comb, making sure that the blade always stays along the bottom of the comb. And he made the perfect example. If you're a barber, here's your guard, here's your clipper. So what I did is I would go home and sit on the sofa just for muscle memory, so that my bottom shear would be stay stable, and just my thumb was moving. You called it quacking.
Yeah.
When people do this, I can't even do it. It's like one of these things I can't do it. The reason why you need stability, which then follows over into women's hair, is that what it does is it doesn't give me lines on my haircut. So if you're doing this, you're creating lines. By having a steady shear, I'm creating no lines. So I would start here, just like you said, the Denman comb. Then what I would do is I was, again, not cutting myself. I'd hold the bottom shear and just get myself used to feeling it up against the comb. Then I would start going into haircuts, where and at first I would start slow because I was scared. And then I did start on mannequins, to be honest. I started on mannequins first. And then eventually, it just becomes a natural, it's just like blow drying hair, or combing hair, or coloring, highlighting. It just becomes an extension of my hand. I don't even
Perfect
think
practice
about it.
makes perfect. Yeah,
Yes,
it sounds like you had
practice
all
makes
the right advice on what to do.
I really did. I'm
and
very
then you practice it.
fortunate.
And that's what's so important, because especially with a technique like scissor over comb, I've seen really great hairdressers that don't do scissor over comb well.
I agree
and they'll
with-
tell you.
yeah.
I've seen great stylists that can do all kinds of stuff, and they'll tell you, "Oh no, I can't do that." And again, if you're going to do this career for a long time, try to master all the little things that you can. That's what keeps it fulfilling.
And-
If there's something you can't do, say in the next 6 months, I'm going to learn how to do this. Like you said, you practice,
Practice,
and I'm sure you feel more fulfilled. And look at all the success it's brought to your career.
It is. This technique changed my career to where I work with 8 A-list Hollywood men. 8.
Yeah.
I cut them all.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I have such control over my shears. I know how to approach haircuts. My etiquette behind the chair is everything. My professionalism is outstanding, and that's what keeps people coming back. So again, recap haircuts. I went over my technique with how I learned to use my shear. Started at the nape, went all the way through, came into the sides. Keep in mind, this bone men have. Some guys are prominent, some guys are a little bit softer. If you come in too close, you're going to create a hole. Keep that in mind. The other location is this little, I call it like an island almost. It's sort of its own entity. It's also closest to the hairline, so it's what shows the most. So you want to make sure that you approach this from a different angle. Again, everything looks blended. Once I completed my scissor over comb, I don't use thinning shears to thin hair. I use them to soften ends. So I come in here, notice it's the same scissor over comb technique. I'm not going into the hair, I'm scooping my comb to create softness on the ends. And that's all it's doing, is when his hair grows in, it'll grow flat versus weight taken out. I like that there's some weight as you build up. So I don't mind that if I were to come in and take all that weight out, it would look like holes in the hair. So just softening my lines. Again, men's haircuts. Keep in mind the round of the head. Don't leave it as square. 2 things that it helps with. When there's recession, it takes away from the recession if you have too much weight. So take this on the round. With curly hair, with any hair, use different techniques. So I point cut everything on the top, went across horizontally, took off the length. Again, point cutting at an angle, which takes out length. Straight pointing cutting into the hair takes out weight. Again, I can either twist the hair with curls, very personalized, up and down through the scissors, I can slice in. I don't like to take out too much weight with curly hair. Reason being is it'll get stringy at the ends. So I keep some of the weight. Rostam and I have a plan. We've already talked about, right, growing out his hair. So with that being said, we're taking out the corners, keeping this out. As the curls grow and turns, it'll eventually weigh itself down. Once it connects here, then we'll start growing out the sides. So probably the next, we talk 3 or 4 haircuts, we're gonna let it grow. As it starts reaching down, then we'll start letting the sides and grow together so he doesn't get too full throughout. Right, Rostam?
That's right.
Do you love your haircut?
I do.
Well, that's
Every
okay.
time.
Thank you, Rostam.
Excellent. I want to, as you're finishing up, I want to give a few shout outs to some of our friends who I know are big supporters of Scissor-over-comb. Milo Maximovich, who's a great technical haircut, has been featured with us before. Our friend Sandy Kowalski Super from the Davanez World. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Deanna says, nice haircut.
All right. Thanks, Deanna.
And Jamie is looking for the ledge comb. We don't sell those combs at HB Pro, but I believe if you go to Denman's site, that's where I first saw them. Denman, who make the brushes. They had a comb a few years ago. I think it was called the ledge comb. They had it in like white and black. And I think it's a great way to practice some of the techniques if you're not familiar with Scissor-over-comb. There was a question that came in about using a finer comb along the edge, and it looks like you're doing that now. So maybe you can recap that as you finish up.
You can see, what do we say the width was of this? I'm terrible.
I mean, it's probably like a millimeter. I mean,
okay, it's a millimeter.
Pretty fine.
And I mean, I know some people can go right on the skin, which is fine. You know, just sort of go along the skin and lift, and just sort of tighten. Sorry, he's a little warm, but you can go along the skin. Also with the thinner shear, excuse me, a thinner comb. Same technique. Notice how I'm angling the comb. And the reason why I'm angling it is because of how his hair pattern grows. So I'm really conscious of growth pattern. And again, notice my comb's lifting just like with the guard. So how of you barbers out there think about it's the same technique. Nothing has changed. I mean, you're a barber.
Yes.
Do you agree that this is the same technique I'm using
Yeah,
on
I mean,
my shears?
I started out and I went to barbering school. This was my 29th year. So 29 years ago, I went to a barbering school and learned clipper work, and it was very different from now. I mean, clipper work has, some people have taken it to a science. We didn't really, it was just over comb. We didn't use guards, to be honest with you. I was taught to just use a comb,
okay.
a comb and a clipper. And if it was anything, you change the blades.
Oh,
so you use a
interesting.
1 over the comb, and then you'd use a 0 to finish off the edges. But now, I mean, I see people have like kits of guards, and I think it's great. But again, when it comes to speed, I found a lot of times it's not faster. I see people spend hours, and the fades are immaculate. So, and I think that's another thing to think about. You know, it's hard to charge a lot of money for a 10-minute haircut.
Yes.
You know, so the things that you're talking about, you know, being behind the chair, being professional, taking time, maybe that could be a solution for some of you guys to learn some new things and charge a little bit more, take a little bit more time. And it could be a great way to grow.
This is a fade, Gerard. You can sort of give me a little grade here, but this is a fade without a shear. I mean, without clippers.
I think it's excellent.
Pure scissor-over-comb work. I guess if you were to call guards, you're, again, the barber, what would this be as far as at the base? Just so
I mean, you know, on the very, very edge there, you've got like a 0, and then it gets into a 1 pretty quickly. You know, it's not a skin fade, which it's definitely not what you were going for. I mean, we used to kind of refer to this as a taper.
Yeah.
I know that word's gotten thrown around a lot. And I think what I really love about this is he's got a strong growth pattern, and you didn't whack off the growth pattern.
No.
I haven't, you know, I didn't really see you use edgers to, I think sometimes people automatically think, oh, this is all bad hair, I'll just shave it off.
No.
That's also the mark of an inexpensive haircut, because to go fast, you have to just whack that off.
Yes, and also I believe in I really, unless it's a military cut, I love a natural neckline. And the reason why is as it grows in, it'll grow in more natural to his neckline, whereas a hard line, it shows the growth.
Yeah, so it looks like a less expensive haircut that happened faster and needs more maintenance when you whack that off. So, you know, where something like this, I would imagine 3-4 weeks from now, it'll be considerably longer, but it'll have grown in with a taper to it.
Well, for those of you that started, we cut your hair, we cut really short the last time, at least 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago? Yeah. So 5 weeks ago, he came in at this length, which tells you how much growth, and I already scissor-over-combed his first haircut from 4 weeks ago, I guess it was. 5 weeks ago. So he already came in with, it was super, super tight, and this was the growth. But you couldn't even tell when we first started that I had just cut his hair 4 weeks ago. So I think that's what's the beauty of is the scissor over comb technique, is that I'm creating the fade naturally, so it grows in naturally for him. It doesn't look like it. Also, think about with this comb, the sideburns. Rostam has a nice growth in his beard. One tip I also wanted to give. First, let me go back to the sideburn. Treat this as very much like the nape. So I'll use a thinning shear. I don't like when you come in with a hard line and then leave all that weight. So go ahead and fade this out on a man. So I'm just going to fade it into his beard, so it looks more natural.
And that comb is very flexible too, so you
Which
can
is
work
really,
with the
I
bones.
can work with the bones.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say is when men, like Rostam is growing out his hair, and I appreciate without even seeing you for several weeks, I had said to him, do me a favor and work with your facial hair while we're growing out your hair. So where I can get him to say, oh my God, I just need a haircut, I'll let him grow his beard in, change up the length of his beard, go shorter, tighter, so the change comes here instead of being frustrated with the growth pattern here. So it gives him an opportunity to go ahead and be like, okay, it's not so bad, I can deal with my hair because I have beard now, or because I'm shaving my beard. So think about that when you're asking people to change, especially men. You work with facial hair, even if it's a weekend growth, a day growth, but it gives that opportunity to not be as focused on, oh my God, I can't take it, I need to cut my hair. So that's just a great little tip.
Great comment coming in from Lisa Stahl-Smith, says it looks great. I love creating custom cuts, dealing with their growth patterns. And that's one of the things I was noticing. I think sometimes when we think about scissor over comb, clipper over comb, it gets so mechanical. And I've watched people just kind of go through and like really be technically great, but not pay attention to the growth. And it's not going to come out great. I noticed that you're moving around based on the growth. Once you're in there, it's quite technical work with your hands, but you're not just going like panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4. It just wouldn't work on his hair.
No, I mean,
because it grows to the
really,
left and to the right.
Feel his hair, so that you can sort of share with what we're dealing with
here.
here. There's a lot up here. It's beautiful hair. It's a coarse texture. There's a lot going on throughout the side. So I really like to personalize. I could never achieve this with a clipper unless we went to that sort of fade.
Yeah.
So I think that that's where it's really important when learning this technique, that you can do this type of haircut on any texture hair and have complete control. The other thing that I wanted to say with men's hair cutting is that have fun. I mean, don't be intimidated. So many times when I teach class, people will say to me, oh, I don't know, I'm afraid to do it. What are you afraid of? I mean, there's afraid of making more money, because you can charge a lot of money for scissor over comb,
Or
I mean, like, what are you afraid of?
Afraid of having a more fulfilling career because you tried new things.
Exactly. So have fun with it, learn with it. Hit me up anytime. I'm on Serafino Says. I can certainly answer any questions. I love getting questions as far as like sometimes I'll have people who I've taught a class and like 3 months, 6 months later, they're like, wait, I have a question. Like I have a client and they've been growing their hair and I don't know what to do. We can easily, I've done phone calls, I've done emails, so we can certainly work through that.
Awesome. As Kristen puts on her finishing touches, I'll remind you guys that there's a great opportunity here to work in her new salon. Opening a salon in Hudson Yards in the fall here. That's New York City. It's without a doubt like the hottest location for business, retail. They've even got hotels and they've got residential there. And it's kind of the buzz of New York City. So if you're a New York hairdresser, she's already looking for skilled hairdressers. I'm sure over time you'll have training and stuff, but you want to start off with some skilled hairdressers. I know you were saying there's a lot of flexibility because it's kind of a small salon, but you want it staffed all the time.
All the time.
So it'll be kind of different shifts and things.
We're open 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We're affiliated with a hotel. So the beauty is the concierge are sending every client to us, which is wonderful and exciting. And I think it's a great opportunity for someone who is eager, business savvy, wants to make a lot of great money, have a lot of fun, and I can be very flexible because we're open so many days and we have a long hours, which is again, it's really fun. I just want to go ahead and recap on this haircut.
Please do,
So once again, scissor-over-comb technique, starting at the nape, working all the way up. Remembering, like I said one more time, control your shears for you barbers. This is your guard, this is your shear, or this is your clipper. Just have constant control, scooping through, scissor-over-comb, all the way to the rounds of the head. The reason why I round out the corners of the head is because a lot of times if you leave that corner at a triangle, it ends up making the forehead look very wide. And we want to sort of eliminate that by softening the corners. In through the top, point cut all the way through horizontally. Because he has curly hair, I use different techniques. I twisted and then went ahead and cut down. You can slice through. I don't want to take out too much weight on his hair. 2 reasons why: we're growing his hair out. So a lot of that weight is going to help to hold down. And once this curl starts to pattern or form and it falls in to the sides, then this will connect with these hairs, and then we'll start letting the sides grow out. For products, really important, guys. I think educating your clients is the key to success, because most clients will leave your chair and go someplace else and buy products. It makes no sense. What I'm using on his hair today is how he's going to achieve the look that I just did. So every time a client's in my chair, I'll tell them the product I'm using. I'll show them how I use it. So I'll say roast them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a curl cream. I'm going to take the amount of, say, a dime. I'm going to always rub, and this is important, in between the fingers, not the palms of my hand. Reason being, the fingers are what manipulates the hair, not the palms. With gentlemen, start at the back, not the front. Most hair's back here. If you go right directly to the face, you're going to weigh it down. A lot of times guys will just go right to the front and it'll get greasy along the hairline.
Or sticky.
Yeah. Start at the back, in between fingers. I tell them just like they're shampooing their hair. There's no right or wrong. Then you have just the right amount. Then you can go into the front and work the front. If you need more, not a problem. Add a little bit more. But I say less is more. It's better than you hopping back in the shower. Just work through the hair. And then this is what I do with guys, especially ones that I work with are new to me. I'll say to them, okay, you understand what I did? Push down the corners, and they're like, yes. And then I say, I'd like you to show me. And I literally will say, go ahead, roast him. See if he was a good listener. Size of a dime. Yep, not in front of a mirror, in between your fingers. Yep, back to front. Excellent. Now at the very end, go through the front. My God, you're such a good listener. Excellent client, A++.
Awesome.
And so that gives him the ability so that if something he does do, I can be like, hey, listen, just remember with these corners, go ahead and rake them down. And he's like, great.
Some of these little hairs off here.
Perfect.
We
They're all
can
covered in
see
hair.
the grand finale. Guys, I want to thank you once again for joining us. I want to thank Kristen for sharing her
Thank you
incredible
so
talent, and she's a very busy person, so to spend time with us and share her skill is really special. Thanks for your ongoing support, and peace out, guys. We'll see you again tomorrow.